think everyone feels like they either got to cut fats or cut carbohydrates to lose weight. And at the end of the day, all doing that does is cut calories.
Yep.
But you could also just cut calories and resequence your macronutrients and still get the same results and feel 10 times better.
Welcome back to Next Gen Gains on Optimized by Jeffrey Delaney. The theme of this podcast is we're trying to help you realize that you need to stop stepping over 3 dimes to pick up a quarter. But the biggest, in my opinion, of the quote unquote dimes is nutrition. So today we're going to be breaking down nutrition pretty in depth. Thank you for coming on and doing this again, Jeff. For starters, in the 30,000 foot view, why is nutrition so important?
I mean, that is everything when it comes to how you feel, how you function, how your body performs, especially if you're somebody who's in the gym or say training for a race like you. I mean, your nutrition is basically the fuel that helps you do what you do. Even if you're somebody who's sedentary, your nutrition is what allows you to have mental energy, physical energy just to get through your day. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously the poison's in the portion when it comes to, nutrition in general. Obviously the world's obese right now. And I think people just eat all the nutrition, right? Yep. Good, bad, whatever. But even when it comes to physical performance, that can make or break your gains. And so, just that'll give you the biggest ROI with anything you do. Out of those 3 dimes we always talk about, like nutrition is the thing that is 60, 70, 75, 80% results if you could hone it in. Unfortunately, that's the hardest thing for most people to do because it takes discipline. It takes willpower. It takes some thought process and scheduling to it that most people are like, F it, So.
Yeah. So let's bring it back to if someone is really just trying to get back into fitness, they're working out, but now the next step is let's dial in on nutrition. So let's kind of break down the macronutrients. Like, where do we start? Where do I start building my nutrition plan?
Well, I always, with nutrition in general, Nutrition 101, I actually just talked about this the other day, is like, you got to understand what it is first, so calories are basically energy, right? The food we eat provides calories to us. Calories is a unit of energy that basically when you eat a certain type of food, whether it be a protein, carb, or fat, it basically puts off energy that your body can use. Now, when we talked about like energy, if you have too much energy, more than your body needs, you're in an energy excess, which could put weight on you. And then vice versa. If you're trying to lose weight, if you don't eat enough calories, or if you got to eat in somewhat of a deficit, you got to decrease some of the calories to be able to lose weight. So for weight management or just, I would just say weight management in general, it comes down to calories, whether you're going to go up or down when it comes to weight. But when it comes to composition of that management, that's where macronutrients come in. So what are your macronutrients? You have your protein, provides 4 calories per gram. Mm-hmm. Protein's essential for more. It's the building block of muscle. It's going to make you feel satiated longer. It's going to help you repair from physical activity. It's basically the thing that's going to probably do the most for you when it comes to holding your muscle if you're dieting or building muscle if you're trying to gain. You have carbohydrates, which is another macronutrient, which provides 4 calories per gram. And it's not super precise, but they've averaged it out, as the common calories per, there's a little bit of difference depending on the types, but just in general, rule of thumb, 4 calories per gram of carbohydrate. Carbohydrates is what our body uses first for energy. It's our primary source of energy, glycogen, sugar. The body will break that down, use that much quicker, much faster. It's kind of the first line of energy that comes in. And then you have fats, which is, essential for like hormone health, digestion, mental clarity. Fat does provide 9 calories per gram though. So, you could eat less, say, grams of fat and you're going to have more calories from it. So understanding obviously the type of macronutrients and then how do you tie it into your caloric consumption to be able to achieve the results you're looking for.
Yeah. Why do you think carbs get such a bad rep?
I think in the world we live, people, a lot of diets have come out over the years. We're talking way back in the 70s, but most people that are overweight got there from probably consuming too many calories first, because carbohydrate, people are told carbohydrates make you fat. eating too many calories makes you fat. Eating more than what your body needs will make you fat. You could still get fat from eating protein. You could still get fat from eating fat. But carbohydrates, since it is the primary source of energy, having too much glycogen in the system, it tends to make it happen a little bit quicker. And then when people actually go to look to lose weight, they go to a particular diet, and most of the diets that have been put out there that are fat loss diets are low carb diets, low glycogen diets. You definitely need to reduce some of your carbohydrates to lose fat, but you don't need to completely restrict them.
Yeah. So something that I learned from you that I've really never taken into account before is, especially for people that are kind of just getting into dialing in on nutrition, you would think that, you work out, I just got to eat protein now. So it's no matter how I can get it. So at that point for me, it was like, if I can get a Chick-fil-A sandwich or go to Publix and get like a pub sub, I got my protein for the day. But what you taught me is about the timing of your food.
Yeah.
So let's kind of break down, how to look at when you're trying to eat protein, you're trying to eat carbs for fuel for your workouts. Like, how should you look at these things, and like, when should you eat them in relation to your workout for optimization? So
that's a very complex question because it depends on the person and the goal. And I would say whenever you're going to build your plan, you almost need to reverse engineer it. It's like, all right, if I'm taking you, Mike, and you're relatively in good composition, it's like, what's your overall goal? How many calories does Mike need? And then of those calories, I usually always have like a certain amount of protein, like protein requirements to be either one, support muscle while you're dieting. So if Mike wants to lose body fat, we'll make sure his calories first are in a caloric deficit. The first thing I go to is set your protein, get your protein requirements. So you're able to, one, you never want to lose muscle. Right. So most people, when they go to diet, they don't get enough protein. And a good rule of thumb for a general American, somewhat sedentary, not physically in the gym, not kicking ass, 0.8. And a lot of places will put it in kilograms. We're in America, we do pounds. Let's talk about pounds. And let's not complicate it. Let's not try to figure out lean muscle tissue. Let's really break it down simple. It's like, give me 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of weight. That pretty simple.
Yep.
That's a general person. That should be enough protein to support muscle or build muscle for someone like that. Then what you do go next in line is, all right, what type of activity are you doing? And so, and let's take a step back because you talked about how do you place it? For me, I'm a big fan of protein being placed evenly through your day. There's 10 million ways to skin a cat. I've worked with probably 80, 90,000 people over the course of 20, 25 years. I like to simplify how you do things and just work with your system, not against your system, and try to find balance in all of it because it gets freaking confusing if you don't know. So like I'm a big fan of multiple smaller frequent meals, never really overeating too much. And so for me, I personally do 5 to 6, I call them meal snacks for the day. Have that protein, whatever you're trying to get for the day. Say, Mike, what do you weigh?
205.
Yeah. So say you're 205 and we're just general trying to make sure we have enough protein to support what you're doing. We'll have 205 grams of protein. Let's divide that by 5 meals or 6 meals. And when I say meals, I count snacks as meals.
Yeah.
And get how much do you need per city? And that's kind of like the first start. Next in line, I usually look at is like, all right, are you physically active? We talked about this. Are you running or are you weight training? Making sure that you're having enough carbohydrates to fuel what you're about to do, because that's our first line of energy as far as what our body will use for energy. So having carbohydrates around, I always say bookend the workout time, depending on the type of workout. If it's something like strength training or if it's something like a high intense cardio or a long bout run like you do, and you do both of those, making sure you have carbohydrates to support what you're about to do and then also replenish what you did. So my protein, I already had it set. I'll sprinkle in the carbohydrates around the physical activity time so they get used as energy. And then I tend to teach a lot of people just fill the gaps with fat at the times that you're not, say, active. And you could put them in at like at nighttime if you're not going to be physically active to still hit your caloric numbers. So you're kind of backfilling. I need my calories. Well, I know X amount of protein needs to come from that. Okay, I'm physically active, so I need to have X amount of carbohydrates to bookend the workout time. And then I start filling the fat in. So you're getting some fat into your diet, which you need for all kinds of biological processes in your system.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people, the biggest problem people run into when trying to dial in nutrition is the cost to eat healthy.
Yep.
Right. So even, for example, yesterday I went to the grocery store, I bought food for the week. It was like $250. I think a lot of the demographic that people that listen to this are going to be, I know it's that 18 to 35 range, but for the younger people that might not have enough, that might not have all this money to just go to the store and be getting, now with the price of eggs and spending money on steaks and beef all the time, right? What is some of the highest ROI meals to be able to get your those macros without spending a lot of money?
I mean, you could get some decent chicken breasts for a relatively decent cost. You go to Costco, get some eggs, you know, and let me start off. Like, I feel like, unfortunately, in the world we live, it's like, I think a lot of people don't know what to do, and they hear so much information like eat this, not that, and you can't have seed oils, and you can't do this, and you got to buy organic, and it has to be grass fed, grass finished, and to be honest with you, I am going to have a guy on the episode at some point that's been in the farming business for a long time, and he's going to probably shatter some misconceptions.
Is this the guy you buy your beef from?
No, this is actually, he's a good friend. He actually does it the right way out in North Dakota, American Rancher Beef. He's awesome. I've known Mike forever. He's actually pretty cost effective too. And like the quality of his beef is amazing. But going back to like cost, you know, you have somebody younger that's on a budget. First off, I'll tell you, it's cheaper to eat healthy because at some point you're going to pay for it. And so you got to have that mindset, and you got to be okay knowing that, like, you don't have to buy the best quality beef, but you could buy a decent quality beef, right? No, don't go buy like the frozen, like, you know, beef patties that have like not just beef, it has like 40 other ingredients in it. You probably want to cut some of that stuff out, but you could get beef pretty decently.
Are we buying like 90-10, 80-50, 85-15?
So that all depends on your goal, and it depends on your diet. That's why, you know, it's hard when people are like, oh, I get so frustrated because it's like, should I eat ketogenic? Should I eat intermittent fasting? Should I do this? Like, what's your goal? What are you trying to do? You know, for someone like who's leaner, you know, you could have a higher fat beef. If you don't have any cholesterol problems, you could probably eat a higher fat beef. General rule of thumb, get a 90-10, 85-15. And then if you have a fatter choice of protein, you might cut back on some of the other macronutrients to make sure you're hitting your calories, right? But I feel like people think it's so expensive to eat good. But when you break down, if you were to just do a cost analysis, sit down and write out your week. If you're somebody who's just starting to start a nutrition plan, write out what you do, how many times you eat out, what type of food you're eating, and do a breakdown, because I'll tell you, when you start eating healthier, you end up spending less money. You're not going out blowing money at, you know, Chick-fil-A, or, I mean, even though it's in theory cheap, it ends up adding up over time. Or if you go out to dinner 3 times a week, that's your week in beef and chicken and eggs. So it's like, truly, like, before you even consider, just so you could see it, like, do a cost analysis, like, write out your week, what you did and how much you spent, and then see what it costs to buy some lean ground beef and you know, a thing of eggs at Costco. When I was younger, Costco, Sam's, that was my go-to. You know, you get way more for your money. But some people are like, oh, but it's not organic, it's not grass-fed, you being somewhat better in your health choices, just going from crap food to whole food, is 10 times better for you than you going from whole food to like the best of the best of the best.
Yeah. And to me, it's more about changing your relationship with food, because you can, when I ask that question, I ask it almost like sarcastically, because
it's hard because I can't give you a definitive answer, because it's like, you know, you got the person, the goal, and what are they doing now? And then what are they willing to do? But I think a lot of people want to just automatically pawn it off. It's too expensive, and I could do it just so they could keep doing what they're doing.
And I think if you can change your relationship with food and make it more that you're eating for fuel and not eating for enjoyment. For example, I eat ground beef and rice every day. So it's like, yes, it's boring. And like, that's the other like pushback you get from people when it's eating healthy. It's like, oh, it's boring. It doesn't
have to be chicken and broccoli.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be. I mean, listen, you might be okay with it and you like it.
Yeah.
But there's ways to make it taste good. There's ways to spice it up. It's like, you don't have to be like, oh, I just got to do plain boiled chicken and broccoli. Like, like, you definitely could eat better sources of protein, better sources of carbohydrates, better sources of fat. Season it up, find like lower calorie dressings and ways to kind of spice it up. And if the population most of the population eats 20 to 30% good.
Yep.
And 70 to 80% bad. If they would just shift that and eat 70% good and 30% meh, you're going to see results. Your body composition is going to change. Your health markers are going to improve. And it's like, just make that shift first. And then what I was saying is like, it does, and you think it costs a little bit more money to eat healthier now, but as I get older and I put more value into like, I want to be around a little bit longer and I want to be there for my kid and my wife, and you're going to pay for it later. And so it's like, I'd rather spend a couple extra bucks and know that like, I'm not going to be spending it on medicine or spending it going to the doctor or spending it being in a hospital. And so I know people are like, oh, yeah, like, they kind of always throw like, I'm not worried about that now or whatever, but you should be. And like I said, just find a way to go more whole foods and just get better solid food choices and start with just being 70% good.
Yeah. So another question I had is, what do you think on like the quote unquote superfoods, right? Like you talk eggs, avocados. What are some of the highest ROI foods that you can place into your diet to quickly?
I'm going to catch flack for this one.
Oh,
sorry, vegan, vegetarian, but, listen, beef, good quality meats. I love fish. Now you're going to have people like, well, but if you buy salmon, it's not wild raised, like still better than you eating that fish fillet sandwich. But, a lot more whole food proteins, chicken, turkey, fish, eggs, beef, you name it. When it comes to, for me, it's hard for me to eat a lot of that back to back. So I do supplement, protein supplements, which is a great way to get some protein without having to like feel full, especially if you're trying to build some muscle and your calories are high. So I do use that, but it is a supplement. It's not a staple. I think a lot of people rely solely on supplements too, and it's supposed to be a supplement. So, but it's a great tool in your arsenal to be able to hit your protein requirements. In a perfect world, if you could eat a solid food at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and you fill the gaps in between with something like a supplemental shake with some carbs, depending on your goal, or a shake with nuts, depending on your goal. Yep. It depends if you're trying to build or lean. That's kind of probably one of the best ways to formulate a plan and eat at the times that the average American eats at breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and fill the gaps. But I feel like a lot of people tend to just not eat anymore. Like they just want to prescribe to, I'm not going to eat all day or eat at least the front part of the day. Yep. And then they just do whatever the rest of the day. So
yeah, I think a lot of people pick up like an intermittent fasting diet and think it's going to change the world for them. But
listen, they all have benefits, but they all have cons that go with them, which I know we're going to talk about.
Yeah, we'll say it the next episode.
That's going to be another episode. I think we need to break some stuff down, but going back to, better choices, things that are going to give you avocado, nuts, seeds, as far as your fat choices, healthy oils, with your carbohydrate choices, going away from like less processed carbohydrates, more, rice. You could do legumes, vegetables, load up with the healthier, more whole food carbohydrate.
What do we say to the people in the comments? They're going to be like, oh, you can't eat that many eggs because you're going to have high cholesterol. I'll
tell you this, it runs in my family. I've probably for the last 15 years ate a minimum of 6 eggs per day, every single day, whole eggs. My cholesterol, it's the best it's ever been. There's tons of study coming out now, and I'm in the weight loss world showing that uncontrolled sugar feeds inflammation and also more like bad HDL, LDL plaque deposition than having dietary fat.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you can confirm or deny this, but I'm pretty sure from my research, at least, that unless you have like a pre-existing heart condition, high cholesterol it's fine.
Well, you got to have some cholesterol for certain things, especially in men for testosterone production, just healthy hormones in general. I don't want to piss too many people off, but you got to look at cholesterol as one, what's your predisposition? I worked cardiac for years. So like one, do you have a predisposition? Did mom, dad, grandma, grandpa maybe have some cardiac event. And this is good information for everybody to know. It's a special topic for me because I see a lot of people that have somewhat higher cholesterol, and unfortunately in the medical community, they're so quick to put them on a statin. Whereas like they didn't even vet out if that person has a cardiovascular plaque risk. And so one, I say, look at your predisposition, look at your family, look at your current cholesterol markers. And if you want to go even deeper, you could do it like an apolipoprotein A, B, which is a little more precise. But if you got a good HDL cholesterol with a normal total, you know, as a peace of mind, you could do a CT coronary score. It's a super quick test. A lot of times locally, they actually do it self-pay out of pocket. It's like $100. It shows calcification coming out of the aorta. If it's relatively low to no plaque, your cardiac risk is very low.
Yeah, I think it's funny too, because the same people that, you know, are complaining about high cholesterol because you're eating a lot of eggs are eating Ben & Jerry's and not worried about sugar. So
yeah.
But we talked about protein, we talked about carbs. The last thing is fat. I also think fat gets a pretty bad rep. I think a lot of people aren't aware of the positives with joint health, hormone regulation. Can you speak a little bit to fat?
I mean, listen, fat is a way to fill. You need fat in your diet to mentally, your brain thinks off fat, like cognitive function, obviously omega fatty, like if you get into like quality, like salmon, fish, making sure you're supplementing. I supplement an omega-3. I actually use Nordic Naturals just because I like it. Some people are like, well, you shouldn't do omegas because they're rancid and you're going to die. You know, that's so many people with, or what is it, orthorexia around here. We'll talk about that on another whole section. But, you know, having like a good quality omega has the anti-inflammatory type benefits out of it. It could help with synovial fluid production, which actually lubricates your joints. You know, makes you feel satiated longer. So fats have a place in the diet. Like you should never really restrict any one macronutrient out of your diet. You just need to find out like, one, what are your requirements? Obviously for me, I'm a big protein guy. Like make sure you get your protein requirement, put the carbs in so you have gas in the tank to have energy, and then fill the rest up with healthy quality fats, and just make sure you have like the wagon wheel. Like there's no piece of that wood wagon wheel is missing, so it rides nice.
Yeah. I fats and carbs for some reason, I think just based off like all the processed foods and fast food you can eat now get such a bad rep. But if eaten right, if you're getting your fats from the right thing, avocados, nuts, things like that.
Well, more whole food. So like getting away from the refined process, getting away from the hydrogenated oils, the not so good, the trans fats, you know, a lot of those are going to create some problems. So, but if you're talking like healthier oils, I do a decent amount of coconut oil because it's a medium chain fat, or MCT oil, nuts, seeds, but going more natural, you know, trying to get away from the processed crap. And then when it comes to carbohydrates, like more quality, you know, complex carbohydrates. So you actually have consistent energy through your day. I think everyone feels like they either got to cut fats or cut carbohydrates to lose weight. And end of the day, all doing that does is cut calories. But you could also just cut calories and resequence your macronutrients and still get the same results and feel 10 times better.
That's right. The last thing I want to rope into nutrition is hydration. I think that's another one that people kind of completely just throw out the window because it really is so. Like when you tell someone like, oh, you got to drink 8 cups of water a day, like in theory.
That's actually another dime, man. It really is. I put it with nutrition, but like, you know, your sleep, your nutrition, your training.
And I think for hydration, it's obviously not harder than getting your food dialed in because you just got to drink more water. But I think where like the mishap comes is you hear like, I got to drink 8 glasses of water a day. If you've tried it, that's a lot of fucking water. And so I think that's where it goes. And then also, at least for me, part of my frustration is what we were talking about off camera, where it's like, okay, they tell you don't drink your tap water because it's bad for you. Don't drink out of a plastic bottle because it's bad for you. You got to drink glass. I talked about this on an earlier podcast where it's like, if you pull out and look at like the solution to be quote unquote like healthy is to spend $4 a glass water bottle. Spending $500 a month on water, that's ridiculous. And it's like, but again, to your point of like I listened to this on podcast today. Is Naval Ramnakan, and he calls people like this IYIs, intellectually idiots.
Yeah.
And it's where it's like you throw common sense out the window because you fixate on something so minor and like go so deep. So you take eggs and cholesterol, for an example, where it's like eggs are clearly good for you. Clearly, obviously.
Proven time and time again.
Somebody went so deep into eggs that they found out that it might raise your cholesterol a little bit. So now all of a sudden you fixate on this one little minor bad thing and you throw common sense out the window. So
that goes back to what we were talking about. Let's talk about it, man. Like that's orthorexia. So orthorexia is basically you have the person that's trying to they're doing it for health and wellness, but they become fixated on all the micro type things, whether it be drinking from a glass bottle, not having any extra ingredients. And what happens over time is they get so fixated that they're like, and I'll tell you in the world, like if that's the case, if a lot of that's, like going to make a huge difference, shit, you're not going to eat nothing. You're not going to drink nothing. Yep. And that's what happens with these people is they get so fixated on it. And now it's like, I can't go out to eat here and I can't go to this social event and I can't do this. And they almost, it's not good for their mental and physical well-being. Mm-hmm. And they get malnourished because they're so fixated on such the micro type things and they just lose the sight of having balance. You got to find balance. You got to live your life. Like, listen, if you were to take everything you hear on social media and cut seed oils and take away all the stuff that's in some processed stuff. And, you drink from a glass bottle, which now you're going to have to limit how much food you drink because you can't afford to buy everything in a glass bottle. Like you might as well, you just get to the point where you're like, well, shit, I can't do nothing.
Anything. Yeah. It's so funny to me.
And then you get conflicting information from people.
That's the problem.
And then it's like, now it's like information overload. They got, paralysis by analysis. Yep. And it's like, listen, hit the common things. Let's find balance in the grand scheme of it all. Yep. Right.
Like it's like, listen to me, drink more water, drink plastic water bottles. You get more microplastics from your food, the air you breathe than the water you drink anyways. Yep. You can't stop it. Drink more water.
Yeah.
But I think, so we covered protein, we covered carbs, fats, hydration.
Well, so we kind of talked hydration. So let's go back to hydration real quick because I do want to talk about this for a second. You can live without food. You can't live without water. Mm-hmm. You won't live long without water. And you need it. So it's essential. You got to have it. But I'll tell you, most people walk around dehydrated. They drink everything but water. Mm-hmm. Or you get the other flip note. My brother drinks like 2.5 gallons a day, but he doesn't add like electrolytes. And I'm like, he's constantly flushing electrolytes out.
I don't know how you drink 2.5 gallons a day.
I think people can condition themselves over time. I don't know how you like water that much.
I can't like 16 times a day.
Oh my God. So, but it's like hydrate, try to get your, I always say 2 liters per day. 64 fluid ounces of actual water. It doesn't have to be straight water. I'm a big fan of adding like a little bit of flavor so it's easy to take down. Add like electrolyte tablets. I personally use Noon Tabs, NUUN. There's LMNT. Yep. For me, it's a little too salty. So you would have to drink it with a lot of water just to dilute it. I like the Noon Tabs, but you could hydrate with water, but you're not necessarily hydrating without the sodium and the potassium and the minerals that are in there. So a lot of times when you sweat, you flush a lot of that out. If you could get 1-2 liters a day and have electrolytes or enough electrolytes through, just whether it be through your diet or through adding electrolytes to your fluid, your performance skyrockets, your mental clarity goes up, your muscles are a lot more full, less chance to cramp, you perform better. Like hydrate, but hydrate well. You don't have to drink a gallon a day. Still have stuff. Don't be afraid to have other beverages. Just don't waste your calories on beverages. I'm a big fan I'm in the weight management world because being fat is going to create a lot of problems. Yep. So don't kill your calories in beverages. Don't drink like high sugar juices. Don't try to, eat regular soda. Yep. Cut back on those things that really don't matter so much and put it towards some real food and your life will change.
Yeah. Stick to Diet Coke.
Yeah.
No. But so just recap, you need protein, you need carbs, you need fat. It's about when you eat them, how you eat them. Don't listen to the food pyramid is reversed.
Yeah.
Listen to Jeff, call TClinics. If you have any questions, comments, arguments you want to make, comment down below. We're happy to respond. And Make sure you like and subscribe. Next week, we're going to be dropping an episode breaking down each diet, every fad diet, all the main diets for the pros and the cons. So it's going to be a good one.
I like you copied me today. You got the memo with the shirt.
To make America healthy again. I think it fits with the nutrition episode.
Yeah,
so,
no, it was good, man. That's like, obviously T-Clinics is making men great again.
Yeah.
But, I've been behind Make America Healthy forever. I feel like I've been doing it before it was cool. I wish I would have trademarked it.
Yeah.
But no, definitely. I mean, that's a goal here is, we're not healthy as a country.
Nope.
And you could look at other countries. We are not, like, we're low on that list. And the only way that's going to change is by you making educated decisions and have the right information. For me, it's like, I love giving value. I love helping people just to make smart decisions and find balance in their life. And it's not being 110 in one direction. It's like, let's just find balance in all of it and just be healthier.
Yeah. T-Clinics and Nuviva Weight Loss, making America healthier one person at a time.
Peace.